Not my problem. Woo! When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need a what a lie and amazing. All of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please tell me down. Yeah,
Well, the Beatles, when they first came out, the American music scene was pretty much a certain set of standardized music. There were songwriters that wrote the songs for the bands, and the bands just would play and sing the songs and become hits. And it was
The Beatles started in a place called Liverpool, England, which was a very poor town. This was really important for their influence because their music was not already prefabricated. After the Beatles' formation, they became a huge hit and began touring right away.
when they stopped touring as a pop band, or what they called the Mop Tops back then, they actually completely changed their style over. They went to the next couple of albums, Rubber Soul, which was more influenced by Bob Dylan and more acoustic type songs. They weren't the bright jangly guitar pop songs anymore, and more introspective type lyrics. So that was kind of the start of it, and then a Revolver was more of a psychedelic type experiment into some different sound. Obviously the big major album after that was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which was beginning of what they call album-oriented rock, where it was more of a concept album, where the whole album was kind of tied together with different songs. It wasn't just a bunch of pop hits stuck together on an album.
This album was a huge influence on many bands of that era because of the wide range of instruments used and lyrics.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So the Beatles had a pretty successful career. They broke up in 1970, and after that they all had very successful individual careers, which is also something kind of unique about them, and that most bands or groups that were popular before that, once they split up, that was pretty much it. You didn't hear from them again, or there could have been maybe one or two, maybe two from the band that made it. But actually all of the Beatles had very popular careers, or successful careers.
After the breakup of the Beatles, Paul McCartney went on to form the band Wings, which had a longer-lasting success than the Beatles. He also went on to have a solo career and is still performing today. John Lennon had a solo career but was shot and killed in 1980, 10 years after the Beatles had broken up. George Harrison also went on to have a solo career, but he died from throat cancer in 2001. Ringo Starr has a solo career and he is still performing today. Altogether, they had a huge effect on the way music was made and perceived.
We passed up on the stand.
David Bowie started off as David Jones. He was like a teenage model and folk singer. Had the idea in the early 70s to create an alter ego, Ziggy Stardust.
In the 1970s, David Bowie's alter ego, Ziggy Stardust, was very well known for his hairstyle and his extreme sense of fashion.
So then after that, this whole Ziggy Stardust era, he kind of changed his personality and his look and everything, which was something, again, very unique and innovative about him. He kept moving with the times with the different styles of music, but he also changed his appearance. So that was kind of the beginning of an era of kind of the glitter makeup type style bands, as they call it. And his songs were different. They still had some rock songs to them, but he wrote songs that were kind of different from other ones.
David Bowie was also very well known for his evolutionary stage presence. Instead of just a regular rock concert, the audience could expect more of an event of theater. This was very evolutionary for the time. No other rock concert or band had ever been like this before.
And he was always pretty much one step ahead of whatever trends were out at the time. He didn't like to stay in one place very long, and he was always changing his sound and image. And I know he probably spawned a lot of glam and glitter rock bands at the time, in the early 70s.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go, but her friend is nowhere to be seen. Now she walks through her sunken dream.
Led Zeppelin started off after the breakup of the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds were kind of doing heavy psychedelic blues at the end, and Jimmy Page saw how well it was going over in the States and wanted to continue.
At first, Jimmy Page wanted to name the band the Yardbirds 2. However, he was talking this over with some of the members of the band The Who, and they claimed it would go over like a lead balloon, which is where the name Led Zeppelin came from.
Their main breaking point is the Led Zeppelin 2 album. They had their original Led Zeppelin album, which was successful, but didn't really break them in America as much as they wanted.
Then, Led Zeppelin released the album Led Zeppelin 2, which got them huge critical success. The album contained many studio effects, and the biggest songs to come out of that album were Heartbreaker and Whole Lotta Love. These songs included many studio effects, and they are considered to be very influential and very heavy for that time frame. They were very loud and very different, which made them stand out among many of the other groups at that time.
Their early albums were well produced, a lot of blues influence songs, and they were recorded extremely heavy, and they really had a big impact on people. They were very innovative for the sound and the heaviness of the albums at that time.
Okay, Pink Floyd was another 60s band in that late 60s time frame, a British invasion type band. They actually were called the Pink Floyd when they started out.
Syd Barrett was their founding member, and he took the band into a more psychedelic direction in the mid-60s. He was their main songwriter and key figure at that time. He got heavily involved with drug abuse later on and had to quit the band before they really became as big as they are now.
So Pink Floyd, when they really made it big, was in the early 70s. An album called The Dark Side of the Moon. So
The album Dark Side of the Moon granted Pink Floyd much success. It was very influential for its dreamy, drug-induced atmosphere and its depressing lyrics.
Something you'd put on your headphones and kind of just listen to. There were some kind of stereo effects going on, and it was just kind of a whole different experience, I guess is what I want to say, an album-orientated experience, which is a beginning of a new era that kind of influenced a lot of other bands after that.
Pink Floyd influenced the entire generation on how psychedelic music and album-oriented rock could be made. After the breakup, David Gilmour, the guitarist, and Roger Waters, the bassist, went on to have their separate solo careers.
Nirvana was kind of took everything by storm in the early 90s. the 80s, at least the late 80s, were pretty much dominated by the hair metal bands.
During the 80s, there was this kind of commercialized corporate rock, or hair metal type music, and the music industry was naturally progressing, wanted to change that, and wanted to get away from this fake commercialized stuff. So there was this underlying movement, ended up becoming grunge music, but it was
Influenced, a lot of other bands, like Alice in Chains and a lot of other Seattle bands. And they had a real good direct sound, heavy, almost punk influenced sound.
Nirvana's songs and presence was very different than the mainstream music before it. They had direct, stripped-down sound, and they did not focus on aerodynamics and flashy stage presences.
So Nirvana again made it very big with that type of grunge movie, completely different contrast to what was out there already in the 80s. So it caught on very well because it was back to the basics of what rock was supposed to be. Nirvana had the main album Nevermind, and a lot of hit songs from there. Smells Like Teen Spirit and many other ones that were very stripped down songs but became very popular.
In the 90s, Nirvana had a huge success for about 3 years. In the year 1994, frontman Kurt Cobain committed suicide after struggling from a long-term heroin addiction. Bassist Chris Novoselic went on to be a politician, and Dave Grohl is still making music now as the frontman of the band Foo Fighters.